The first compliment that truly touches a woman's heart is when she feels emotionally understood, not just physically admired. Many people say you look beautiful, but very few say, I feel safe talking to you, or your presence makes difficult days easier. Real attraction grows when a woman feels seen beyond her appearance. In relationships, emotional connection creates attachment far stronger than looks ever can. A person never forgets someone who made them feel valued during their most insecure moments. A powerful compliment is appreciating her strength during hard times. Women often carry emotional pain silently while still loving deeply, supporting others, and hiding their own heartbreak. When someone notices her resilience and says, I admire how strong you stayed through everything, it creates emotional trust. Love becomes deeper when appreciation is connected to character, loyalty, and emotional endurance instead of surface-level attraction. Sometimes one honest compliment heals wounds created by years of neglect. The deepest compliment is making her feel chosen, not compared. In modern relationships, many people feel replaceable, ignored, or emotionally invisible. Telling a woman, I don't just want anyone, I value you because of who you are, creates emotional security and attachment. Real love is not about manipulation or perfect words, it is about making someone feel emotionally safe, respected, and irreplaceable. People fall deeply for those who protect their self-worth instead of damaging it. He used to think women fell in love because of beauty, charm, or perfect words. That's what the world kept teaching him. Everywhere he looked, people were trying too hard to impress each other. Expensive gifts, fake confidence, rehearsed compliments, forced personalities. But the older he became, the more he realized something painful attraction may catch attention for a moment, but emotional safety is what keeps someone's heart. And he learned that lesson too. Late. There was a woman he once loved deeply. She wasn't the loudest person in the room, and she didn't try to make everyone notice her. But there was something about her presence that felt calm, almost like home. She carried herself like someone who had survived storms nobody knew about. At first, he complimented her the way most men do. He told her she looked beautiful. He admired her smile. He noticed her eyes. She would smile politely every time, but he never saw that deep emotional reaction he expected. One night changed everything. They were sitting inside a parked car after a long argument about life, family pressure, and the emotional exhaustion both of them were carrying. For the first time, she stopped pretending to be strong. Her voice cracked while talking about how tired she was of always acting okay for everyone else. She admitted she felt invisible in most relationships, like people only loved the version of her that was useful, happy, or easy to handle. He looked at her differently in that moment, not as someone to impress, but as someone silently begging to be understood. And without thinking too much, he said something simple. I don't think people realize how much pain you hide behind your smile, but I do. The silence after those words felt heavier than anything he had ever experienced. Her eyes filled with tears instantly, not because the sentence was poetic, but because somebody finally saw what she spent years trying to hide. Nobody had ever complimented her emotional strength before. Nobody noticed how hard she fought just to keep going every day. In that moment, he understood something most people never learn about love. People become attached to those who make them feel emotionally visible. From that night on, their relationship changed. She became softer with him, more open, more emotionally connected. Not because he acted perfect, but because she felt safe enough to stop pretending around him. And safety is rare in modern love. Most people are terrified of vulnerability because they've learned that opening their heart often leads to abandonment. So they wear masks, they become emotionally distant, they act unbothered. But deep inside, everyone wants the same thing, someone who truly sees them without judgment. He started noticing things he ignored before. The way she always checked on everyone else while neglecting herself. The way she apologized even when she wasn't wrong. The way she laughed loudly in public but cried quietly when nobody was around. And instead of complimenting her appearance all the time, he started appreciating the parts of her soul nobody else noticed. He told her she had one of the kindest hearts he had ever seen. He told her he admired the way she stayed loving despite everything life put her through. Those words touched her more deeply than any romantic line ever could. But love is strange. Sometimes people teach us the biggest lessons right before leaving. As time passed, life became harder. Misunderstandings grew. Emotional wounds from their past slowly entered the relationship. They loved each other deeply, but neither of them fully healed from what hurt them before they met. And one painful truth about relationships is this: love alone cannot save two people who are still at war with themselves. Eventually, they drifted apart. The breakup destroyed him in ways he never expected. Not because he lost attention or companionship, but because he lost someone who once made him feel emotionally understood too. For months, he replayed every memory in his mind, every conversation, every late-night confession, every moment she looked at him like he was the only safe place left in her world. He realized heartbreak feels heavier when the connection was emotional, not superficial. But during that loneliness, he learned the most important lesson of all. People don't always remember every compliment you gave them. They forget the flirting. They forget the jokes. They even forget some memories over time. But they never forget how you made them feel about themselves. A person will always remember the one who made them feel worthy during the moments they secretly hated themselves. That realization changed him completely. He stopped trying to impress people and started trying to understand them. He stopped chasing validation and started building emotional honesty. He realized real masculinity is not about control, ego, or manipulation. It's about creating safety, emotional safety, the kind where someone feels accepted enough to reveal the parts of themselves they hide from the world. Years later, even after the relationship ended, he still carried one memory close to his heart. The night she looked at him with tears in her eyes after finally feeling understood. That moment taught him more about love than any advice ever could. Because in the end, people don't fall deeply for perfect faces or perfect words. They fall for the rare soul that makes them feel seen when the whole world only noticed the surface. She was the kind of woman people described as strong without ever asking why she had to become that way in the first place. Everyone admired how calm she stayed during difficult moments, how she carried responsibilities without complaining, how she smiled even when life was quietly breaking her apart. But nobody really understood the weight behind that strength. Nobody saw the nights she cried alone, the exhaustion hidden behind her eyes, or the emotional battles she fought silently every single day. He noticed it slowly. At first, he was attracted to her energy. She seemed mature, independent, emotionally balanced, the kind of person who always knew how to handle life. But the closer he got to her, the more he realized her strength was not natural peace. It was survival. She had learned very early that showing pain made people uncomfortable, so she trained herself to suffer quietly. Over time, she became the person every knee leaned on while nobody stopped to ask if she was tired too. One evening, they sat together after a long day. She looked emotionally drained, staring at nothing while pretending everything was normal. He asked her what was wrong, and like always, she said, "I'm fine." But this time he didn't accept the answer. He could feel something heavy sitting inside her heart. After a long silence, she finally admitted how exhausted she felt from always being strong for everyone else. Family problems, emotional disappointments, past heartbreaks, she carried all of it quietly because she believed vulnerability would make people leave. As she spoke, he realized something painful about love. The strongest people often receive the least emotional care because everyone assumes they don't need it. He looked at her and said softly, "I honestly admire how you survive things that would break most people." She went silent immediately, not because the words were dramatic, but because nobody had ever complimented her resilience before. People praised her beauty. People liked her kindness, but very few noticed the emotional strength it took for her to wake up every morning and continue loving the world after everything she had been through. In that moment, her eyes filled with tears she had probably been holding back for years. That was the night their emotional connection deepened. After that conversation, she slowly began opening parts of herself she usually kept hidden. She talked about the heartbreak that changed her, the relationship where she gave everything to someone who slowly made her feel emotionally invisible. She admitted how painful it was to love deeply and still feel unwanted. The worst part wasn't the breakup itself, it was losing herself while trying to keep someone else happy. He listened carefully, realizing how many people walk around carrying invisible emotional scars. Some wounds don't leave bruises on the body, they leave doubt inside the heart. They make people question their worth, their lovability, their value. And when someone experiences enough disappointment in love, they stop expecting emotional safety from anyone. That's why his words mattered to her. For the first time in a long time, someone appreciated her not for what she provided, but for what she survived. As months passed, he noticed how deeply women attach emotionally to appreciation connected to character rather than appearance. Every time he acknowledged her strength, her loyalty, or her emotional endurance, she became softer with him. Not weaker, softer. There's a difference. A woman becomes emotionally attached when she feels emotionally safe enough to stop fighting the world for a moment. But life has a cruel way of testing people right when they begin healing. Eventually, his own emotional flaws started appearing. He carried insecurities he never fully dealt with. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Instead of communicating honestly during stressful moments, he became distant. And distance is dangerous in relationships where emotional connection is everything. She noticed the change immediately. The same woman who once felt emotionally seen by him slowly began feeling abandoned again. Old wounds reopened. Her fear of being emotionally unimportant returned stronger than before. He loved her deeply, but he didn't realize something important. When someone has spent years surviving emotional pain, inconsistency feels terrifying. Silence feels personal. Coldness feels like rejection. They started arguing more often, not because love disappeared, but because unresolved pain started speaking louder than love itself. One night, during a painful conversation, she finally broke down crying and said something he would never forget. "I'm so tired of being strong all the time." That sentence destroyed him, because he finally understood her strength was never something she wanted. It was something life forced her to develop after too many. Why disappointments? She didn't want to always survive. She wanted someone who made survival feel unnecessary for once. But sometimes people understand each other too late. The relationship eventually ended, leaving both of them heartbroken in different ways. She walked away emotionally exhausted, and he stayed behind carrying guilt for not protecting the safe space they once built together. For months, he replayed her words in his head, realizing how often strong people suffer in silence while everyone admires them from a distance. The breakup changed him permanently. He started understanding that love is not just romance, attraction, or chemistry. Real love is emotional care. It is consistency. It is noticing when someone who always says "I'm okay" is secretly falling apart inside. He realized compliments become powerful when they heal emotional wounds people hide from the world. Years later, he still remembered the look in her eyes the first time someone appreciated her strength, instead of taking advantage of it. And that memory stayed with him because it taught him something most people never learn about relationships. Sometimes the people who look the strongest are simply the ones who got tired of waiting for someone to save them. She had spent most of her life feeling replaceable. Not because people directly told her she wasn't enough, but because of the way they loved her. Temporary attention, half-hearted effort, conversations that slowly faded, promises that sounded real in the beginning but disappeared with time. Every relationship left behind the same painful feeling: she was always appreciated until someone better came along. Over time, she stopped expecting permanence from people. She became careful with her heart, careful with her emotions, careful with attachment itself. She still loved deeply but quietly. She learned how to hide disappointment behind smiles and act emotionally independent even when loneliness consumed her at night. She wasn't afraid of being alone. She was afraid of giving her soul to someone who would eventually make her feel forgettable again. Then she met him. At first, he didn't seem extraordinary. He wasn't overly smooth with words, and he didn't try too hard to impress her. What made him different was the way he paid attention. He noticed details other people ignored. The change in her voice when she was emotionally tired, the way she became distant whenever conversations touched vulnerable subjects, the way she laughed during serious moments just to avoid talking about her pain. And strangely, he never tried to fix her. He simply stayed. In a world where people constantly searched for the next best thing, his consistency confused her. She kept waiting for the version of him that would eventually lose interest. The coldness, the emotional distance, the sudden disappearance people call losing feelings. But weeks turned into months, and he remained emotionally present in ways she wasn't used to. One night, during a deep conversation about relationships and heartbreak, she admitted something she rarely told anyone. "I think people only love me temporarily." The moment those words left her mouth, she looked away in embarrassment, almost like she regretted exposing that insecurity out loud. But instead of giving her fake reassurance, he looked directly at her and said quietly, "I don't see you as someone temporary. I value you because of who you are, not because of what you can give me." She froze. It was such a simple sentence, but it touched something broken inside her. Because most people compliment beauty, some compliment personality, but very few make someone feel emotionally chosen. And there's a huge difference between being desired and being valued. Desire can disappear overnight. Value stays. She had experienced attention before, attraction before, even obsession before. But emotional security? That was rare. For the first time in years, she felt safe enough to stop competing for love. After that night, their connection became deeper than either of them expected. She became emotionally softer around him. The walls she spent years building slowly started falling apart. She no longer felt the need to act perfect all the time because he never made her feel like she had to earn his affection. He made her feel chosen during moments when she couldn't even fully love herself. And that kind of love changes people. Slowly, she stopped comparing herself to others. She stopped obsessing over whether she was good enough. His consistency healed insecurity she carried for years without realizing it. She began understanding that real love is peaceful, not confusing. It doesn't leave you constantly questioning your worth. It doesn't make you beg for attention or wonder where you stand in someone's life. But healing is never linear. The closer they became, the more their hidden fears started surfacing. His fear was losing himself in love. Hers was being abandoned once she became emotionally attached. And sometimes two people can deeply love each other while still struggling with the damage left by previous heartbreaks. One small misunderstanding would suddenly become something bigger because old wounds were speaking through them. If he became quiet for too long, her mind immediately feared rejection. If she emotionally pulled away to protect herself, he feared she was losing interest. Neither of them were fighting each other. They were fighting the memories of people who hurt them before they met. That's the painful thing about emotional attachment. Love often awakens every insecurity people thought they buried. Still, they tried. They loved each other honestly. They created memories that felt real, safe, and emotionally alive. Late-night conversations, quiet support during difficult days, the comfort of simply existing beside someone who understood your soul. For a while, it felt like they had finally found the kind of connection people spend years searching for. But life became complicated. Stress changed their communication. Emotional exhaustion slowly created distance neither of them knew how to fix. They still loved each other deeply, but love can become fragile when fear, overthinking, and unresolved pain slowly enter the relationship, and eventually the distance won. The breakup shattered her in a way she never expected because losing him felt different from losing anyone else. He wasn't just another relationship. He was the first person who truly made her feel irreplaceable. And when someone finally heals a wound you carried your whole life, losing them feels like reopening every scar at once. For months after the relationship ended, she questioned everything. She wondered if real love was ever meant to last. She replayed memories in her mind, trying to understand how something that once felt emotionally safe could still fall apart. But heartbreak taught her something important. His love may not have lasted forever, but the way he valued her changed the way she saw herself permanently. For the first time in her life, she no longer believed she was hard to love. She no longer chased people who made her feel emotionally uncertain. She stopped shrinking herself just to keep someone interested. Losing him hurt deeply, but loving him healed the version of her that always believed she was replaceable. And years later, after all the tears, lessons, and emotional growth, one truth still stayed with her. The people who change your life forever are not always the ones who stay. Sometimes they are the ones who finally teach you that your heart was never too much to deserve real love.